Hello and welcome to Correspondence, the best from France 24's teams around the world. With many countries now facing yet another wave of Covid-19, we'll be reporting from Israel and Austria on the fight against the virus. We'll also head to Cameroon to meet some of the Nigerians heading back home having fled Boko Haram. But first to Louisiana in the southern USA, in a community that's sometimes overlooked. Their Creole language is a cousin of French and has been losing ground in recent years. But now a younger generation is fighting to preserve it. This from Faniala and Ketavan Gorjestani.
Irvin Bernard is a cowboy. He spent his life taking care of cows and horses and has lived on this farm for more than 30 years.
When you're so close to the damn wire, you done broke my stuff.
He speaks English, but also Louisiana Creole, the result of 300 years of various communities interacting.
Tout le monde avant l'âge avant sont tous parler créole. On ne sait pas quoi c'est américain. Américain, t'as fait commencer à l'école. Tout le monde ça c'était tout créole.
The word Creole is not a racial label, but a cultural one. During the 18th century, the term came to describe those born in Louisiana as opposed to Europe or Africa. It is segregation that spread the false belief that blacks spoke Creole while whites spoke Cajun.
Quoi t'as dit from le Cajun et créole? Il n'y en a pas. Pas dans la Louisiane. C'est tout la même affaire pour moi. Tous les mondes couleurs parler créole ou français. Viens ici, bah. Arrête ça, toi. That means, come here, stop that. That's what we had.
Louisiana Creole is now considered an endangered language, but a new generation is fighting to keep it alive. Talib Auguste is 18 years old. He started a podcast on Creole culture to teach people his age about their heritage.
Tu vois pas les jeunes parler en une langue différente que l'anglais. Si c'est comme ma chance pour montrer ça ici. La conservation de la langue créole va aider la francophonie. Parce que la francophonie est enrichie avec les langues créoles.
In his podcast, Le Creole Show, he speaks to other Creoles like Cedric Watson, a musician.
1, 2, 3.
Bonjour tout quelqu'un, mon nom c'est Talib Auguste. Bonjour monsieur Cédric.
Bonjour, bonjour.
About 500,000 Louisiana residents identify as Creoles, and many of them are fighting hard to protect this unique heritage, one of the many cultures of the Francophone world.
Next to West Africa, where extremist group Boko Haram's campaign of violence in northern Nigeria has killed tens of thousands of people and displaced millions more. But some refugees are now making the journey home after calm returned to their villages. Our correspondents Marcela Moko and Regina Sondo met some of them as they headed back from neighbouring Cameroon.
An aerial view of the Minawawa camp in Cameroon's far north region. More than 60,000 Nigerians, mostly women and children, have been living in difficult conditions here since 2013. They fled over the border to escape attacks by Boko Haram insurgents.
These are my children, and this is my wife.
Around 5,000 refugees are now preparing to return home as things now seem to be safer. A bagger fled northeastern Nigeria 7 years ago. He's tidying up his makeshift shelter, hopefully for the last time.
Now there is peace and there is security from my country. And we get work to do from our country now. When we rehabilitate to our country, we are going to start our farmings, our marketing, our everything. Since there is peace. That's why I want to go back to my house.
100 kilometers away from the Minawawa camp, dozens of Nigerian refugees have already set out on their way back to their towns and villages of origin in the hopes of returning to a normal life. Today, Cameroon's Territorial Administration Minister is visiting. He is working on the voluntary repatriation process in collaboration with Nigerian authorities and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees.
It's a victory for both states. It's proof that African nations can manage humanitarian crises. Cameroon has once again shown its ability to take care of refugees from neighbouring countries, as we have always done since independence.
The 100 kilometers journey back begins here on steep roads in Cameroon's far north. Bandi used to have 11 children. She lost 4 children to Boko Haram attacks. After more than 2 hours of travel, she leaves us at the border to continue onwards into Nigeria.
Banki is in front there. We're here in Cameroon, and right in front of us is Nigeria. We're happy to go home.
The future of these thousands of Nigerian refugees in the Lake Chad Basin remains uncertain. Even though Boko Haram attacks have eased off, the group has not yet been totally defeated.
Now, another wave of COVID-19 across Europe, another round of restrictions in many countries. Our next report comes from Austria, where the government is trying to keep things open, be that businesses, museums or universities. It's a policy which has seen some 3 million tests rolled out per week, enough to screen a third of the population. This is from Vianney Laurent and Anthony Mills.
In this Viennese hairdresser's, it's the same ritual for every customer.
Einen wunderschönen guten Tag. Darf ich bitte den Test kontrollieren?
To have your hair cut, you need to present a negative test result. It's a hassle, but understandable, says this hairdresser.
Die Eintrittstestungen sind grundsätzlich eine sehr, sehr gute Sache. Es schützt die Kunden, es schützt uns als Unternehmer und es schützt die Mitarbeiter. Natürlich ist es mit etwas mehr Aufwand verbunden, aber das ist der Preis, den wir dafür bezahlen müssen, während der Pandemie die Salons offen halten zu dürfen.
Ich weiß, dass ich mich hier nicht anstecken kann. Und das ist für mich als älterer Mensch natürlich ganz wichtig. Es ist großartig und ich bin froh, dass es das gibt.
The tests are also compulsory for school children or for people visiting relatives in retirement homes. The result, more than 3 million tests every week. More recently, self-tests are also being distributed for free by pharmacies. They're only for personal use, but they too offer reassurance.
Ich bin froh, diese Tests machen zu können, da mein Vater ein Risikopatient ist. Und wenn ich ihn vorher treffen möchte, mache ich diesen Test, 15 Minuten, und damit ist das Ganze erledigt. Und ich habe Sicherheit und mein Vater auch.
More and more tests. That's the government's strategy for containing the pandemic. But in recent days, there have been around 3,000 new cases daily. Still, this expert says the strategy is the right one.
Je mehr ich teste, umso früher erkenne ich positive Fälle und umso schneller kann ich die Infektionskette unterbrechen. Also aufgrund dieser häufigen Tests konnten wir bis jetzt einen exponentiellen Anstieg der Infektionszahlen verhindern. Die Mathematiker haben für Ende Februar mit ca. 20.000 Fällen pro Tag gerechnet. Das konnte glücklicherweise verhindert werden.
The government plans to extend compulsory testing to cafes and restaurants when they're allowed to open again.
Finally, to Israel, a country which has been leading the global charge when it comes to vaccinating against COVID-19. Over half the population has received a jab. But there are disparities. Inoculation rates are lower amongst the Arab, Israeli and Orthodox Jewish communities. Our correspondents Gwendolyn de Bono and Iris Makler went to meet 2 people who are trying to change that.
Dr. Fadi Dakik and his team are taking the Pfizer vaccine on the road. They're in Surbahar, an Arab village outside Jerusalem, where there's still a lot of vaccine hesitancy.
We go to give vaccinated to the community right there because we not have a lot of people right there that take the vaccinated. A lot of people are afraid from this vaccinated. They don't know what is that doing in our body. I still need to explain a lot.
They unload the vaccines at the village school. Dr. Fadi hopes to immunise 100 residents today. Bnei Brak is the largest ultra-Orthodox city in the world. The vaccination rate here is 20% lower than the national average. Many are from the Hasidic movement, a more fundamentalist strand of Judaism. The city's health officer visits Sari Davidovitz, a local volunteering at their COVID crisis centre.
Yesterday I asked for the phone numbers of the Hasids who've been vaccinated, and we're also looking for places where people haven't received it. In these Hasidic communities, there are fewer vaccinations.
Rabbi David can be asked to give them a blessing to encourage them.
Sari contracted a severe case of COVID when she was pregnant. Since getting better, she's worked hard to convince her community to get vaccinated.
We put up posters. The mayor called residents. We put flyers in mailboxes. Those who hesitate to get the vaccine often change their mind when someone they know or a relative gets ill. It's the deceased who do the job for us.
Back in Surbahar, Dr. Fadi's disappointed. Only a few dozen people have come to get their shots, and he knows why.
There are a lot of things on social media that make it difficult for us. There's false information, fake news about the effects of the vaccine on fertility, pregnancy. This is really the biggest challenge for us, and we're constantly fighting against it.
The doctor promises to come back. 84% of Israelis have had their shots. That drops to 60% amongst Arab citizens. Dr. Fadi's goal is to get his community vaccinated at the same rate as the rest of the country.
That's it for this edition. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Armel Kaur for the camera work and Natasha Milleret for producing. I'm going to leave you now with some images from Japan ahead of this summer's big event, the Olympic torch leaving Fukushima 10 years after the disaster there.